Someone made you host.
Okay, welcome to the Team Task Training Support Program. Tonight is night one. It's kind of an introductory where we're going to look at a couple of simple foundations that apply to other tasks. And then hopefully we're going to have a chance to do some brainstorming as to what tasks we want to accomplish first from the people that are at the meeting tonight. So Cindy is going to kick us off with some information about our startup foundation that we're working on, starting with hand targets. Go ahead, Cindy.
Okay, so hand targets, I'm going to repeat. Hand targets are extremely useful. We always have our hands with us, and we always have something we can guide our dog to touch. And if you've been around us at all, you know that we like to have our dogs punch our hands for a variety of reasons, in a variety of ways, because we can lead this to tasks. You can, and we can also use it for teaching lots of different behaviors. You can move your dog, you can use it for a recall. There's just all kinds of things you can do just simply by having your dog highly reinforced for touching they're touching their nose to your hand. And I see Pippin is having lots of fun. So by having the dog, so we want this behavior highly reinforced. The simple way to teach it is, if you have your dog in front of you and you put your hand out, they will generally come and, maybe not hard punch, but they will generally come and sniff your hand and touch your hand. And that's when you want to mark and treat. Penny uses a verbal, I tend to use a clicker, but you want to mark. Yes, you did it. Nice. Whatever your word is, whatever your mark is, mark and give them a treat. If they're not real interested in your hand, a very simple way, I think I'm going to get a dog over here in a minute. A very simple way is, this is a dog treat. This happens to be a dehydrated chicken heart. And you can just hold the treat under a thumb or a finger. Usually a thumb works best because you can keep your target up. And they will come up and they will sniff this. And you can say yes and give them the treat. And you can give them that particular treat. It's not one of these behaviors where we're switching treats out, because we're not teaching a leave it here. We are teaching touch the hand, get the food. So if that means you have to come up and touch the hand to get the food, that's fine. And this can actually be useful later if you have an issue with a dog that needs some treat taking skills. So having them touch your hand. Eventually, we're going to work it to a punch and a push, because we can use it for pushing buttons. We can use it for pushing drawers closed. We can push it doors closed. We can push objects across the room. So Belle is demonstrating it right now. Belle is an expert at it. This is also useful for startup behaviors, and we're going to discuss those in a minute. Penny and I both have some advanced games for everybody to practice if everybody's got their dog touching and punching their hand with their nose. Penny, do you want to
Before you
demonstrate?
do that, let's give just a brief reminder of, if you have never done hand targets with your dog in any way, shape, fashion, or form, you can check out the hand targets post that is in the Service Dog Foundation's collection right here on Patreon. So if you've done them before, you can carry on with what we show tonight. And if you've never done them before, check out that post to get you started. Go ahead, Cindy.
It's a pretty easy skill. And the only other thing I was going to say is, Penny, do you want to show us your game that you do with Azul and Belle? And then we'll explain how we can use these games down the road in other.
Sure. Let me adjust just a little bit better so you can see lower to Belle's messy floor. So I do some more active ones as well, but the game for the night is basically, it's almost like a doggy yoga. So in my situation, I'm going to first use a hand target to try to position the dog where you see her. Can you see her good? Looks kind of like you can. And so yoga is basically, her 4 feet should be somewhat square, stay on the floor. I'm going to do stretch your neck up high, stretch your neck down low, left, right, with hand targets, right? So she's basically just turning her neck. And if I was doing it really, really far and kind of reset her, move her back. But so you can do it like just slightly above and slightly down. You don't have to stretch really far. Belle does these a lot, so her neck is really used to the turning. But you can go just slightly direction too. You don't have to go all the way. And if your dog is a pro and you want to do a little bit more directed, you can do, further out so they have to like lean into it or stretch into it a little bit. With that, I usually use the goal that the back feet are staying still and just the front feet are moving. But you can kind of just move them around a little bit in nice, slow, gentle movements is the goal for this week. Belle's getting some freeze-dried kibble for her hand targets tonight, so it's still healthy. She thinks it's a treat. So she can do a lot of these reps and she'll do it all night long. If I want her to punch it, if I hold it up like with no treat and I hold it a little bit further without the bark, please miss, she'll get it. Get it. Oh, that was so soft. Normally she punches it. There was a punch. Get it. Get it. Get it. Yeah, good girl. So, I mean, that was the punch Cindy was talking about a little bit earlier. They push just a little bit harder with their nose, and you can give just a little bit of resistance so that your hand's not going away with it. You're staying there, similar to what a handicap button would do. So, that's my game for the night. It's a little bit of puppy yoga. If you want to know more about puppy yoga, which is what I do with all of my dogs, and it's all based on hand targets, there is a video on YouTube on the Uperpause channel. If you just type keyword yoga, you'll find it. It's like a 15-minute long video, so but you're welcome to look to that, and we can link to that in the Patreon. You want to show us your game, Cindy? Or do you want me to demonstrate if Nick doesn't want to work? You're muted too.
I'm not sure if he does or he doesn't. He's laying on the floor, but let's get him to try.
All right.
He's licking where he used to be a man.
Well, I definitely have a Belle that will do it.
Okay. Nick, you need to get up. It's like, what? Come here.
Looks like we
First
lost
up,
today.
first. Get it. Come on. Get it. Sorry, somehow my flashlight ended up on the floor. So, all right.
Can you tilt your camera up just a little bit? We're not going to be able to see your hand is all.
Okay, Nick, come here. All right, so Nick has a pretty good hand touch, except he doesn't like to touch above his. No. Can you touch? Jump, jump. Okay, good boy. All right. So now he'll probably do it. Right. Come on. So basically, I don't know. You can't see my hand what I'm doing.
Yes.
All right, Nick. Jump. Come on. Nice. So get it. So what I'm having him do is just jump up and touch my hand. All right, sit. Touch. Come on, jump. Nice. So this is kind of a fun game. Come on, jump. Jump. Nice. So this is just a fun game to teach a rewarding behavior because the jump itself. Come on. Nice. All right, Nick, jump. Nice. The jump itself becomes a rewarding behavior because most dogs like to jump. Come on. Yes, good boy. All right, Matt.
It's also a great way, like I know a lot of people say, I don't want my dog to jump, they'll jump on people or whatever. But as you notice, like when Nick or when Belle was doing it, their feet aren't coming in contact with anybody. Their feet are going straight up in the air. They're just lifting their front feet up off the ground. And so that kind of makes a huge difference, and it allows you to teach the difference of raising your feet without actually contacting. And if you do paw targets as much as Cindy and I do, they're used to putting their feet on a wide variety of objects. So it's good to teach them to put their feet on air as well. That way they're not putting their feet on humans. So like
And
even
the
if
other thing
he does go to jump on somebody, he like pulls his feet up so he doesn't contact, right?
Right. I mean, and I have a separate cue of this where I pound my chest. And this was intentionally taught to Nick as a puppy because my boyfriend likes Nick to jump up on him. And I don't want that to be a behavior that is not on cue. I want that on cue so that, yes, they can both get that need met, but at the same time, he's four on the floor with everybody else,
I
unless
do
he's
the
cute.
same thing, but Azul has a couple of best friends that don't give the cue but love to have him jump up near him. So that's
And
how he
that's one
does.
of that's one of those cases where the dogs generally will learn who they're allowed to jump on
Mhm.
and who they're not allowed to jump on.
Yep,
And
that's exactly it.
it's usually a case of they learn I don't jump on anybody unless I'm told, unless it's this person. And we came up with the solution of Ken has to cue the jump up because I was freaking out that Nick was jumping up on Ken. So we fixed that. And so we both had to make a bit of a compromise, but sometimes that's what you have to look for when you're teaching nice behavior in a service dog.
Right. So
So
getting
let's
back
get
to our object of
our
the night, we're
we're
gonna
going to
run
talk.
these task groups very similar to what we used to do with Account Buddies, where when we demonstrate a game, we'll let you guys go ahead and play the game and demonstrate it. So since we started 2 games, which one do you guys want to do first? Or, you don't all have to do both of them. But does anybody have a dog that wants to work, that wants to do some hand targets? And which one do you want to try? Yoga or jumping up?
And nobody's required to do anything they don't want to do.
Correct. And you can do it without showing the camera, but we do love it if somebody can do it. Julie says yoga.
I can see if Pippin will keep doing hand targets. He was doing them for fun a while ago. He
Uh-huh.
might still do them now. Pippin,
So try some yoga moves with just a simple up, down, and just start with
there he
those.
goes.
And be careful that you're not going up so high that their feet are coming off of the floor, or so low that they're going into a lay down. Like if they're up on your lap, it might be a little bit
This way.
harder to do low, but you should be able to do a little bit of low. You don't have to go like
Yep.
all the way down on the floor.
Yeah, you don't want to stand up, do you? He goes, I'm not going to stand up down on your lap.
That's the nice thing about the yoga for hand targets is that you can adjust the height of your hand based on your dog's positioning.
Yeah.
My goal is once I start the game, I don't want their feet
And I
to
think
move
his
from
hip
whatever
around
position
his
they were in before I started.
Yeah, I need to trim his face up. I haven't found my grooming gear since we moved.
Oh, no.
And I've realized I think it's cutting into his vision.
Yeah, I need to see if I can do it.
So now that you have some up downs going on, try some left rights in there. Just do a couple of
Here,
back and forth left rights and skip the up downs for a minute.
here. That's it. This way. Touch. Touch.
And after you've done a few of those, you can
Touch.
kind of
Touch.
like
Now let
merge it
me-
in together. So you don't necessarily have to go left, right. But if you want to try to stretch your dog's neck, which is the goal
Ready?
of yoga, you want to do it the same on each side. So like you might go up, left, down, right, or switch it up, but try to turn the same direction the same amount of times or close to it. The exception to that would be if you have a dog that like stays in heel a lot and is like looking up at you, then you may not do as many reps in that direction that they look up at you, and you might do more in the other direction because you know that throughout the day they've done a lot in that way.
Touch. This way.
And if your dog is sleeping, that's okay. You can continue these games. We're gonna make them harder for our Friday session at 4 p.m. And that's where we're going to show how this can really impact tasks. But we want to make sure that you got the simple foundation first. And it
Yeah, in
looks
my
like you guys
lap,
are
he'll
doing
do
really
it tonight.
good. Does anybody want to do the jump game, or are you going to save that for another night when you want more excited energy kind of thing?
Explain how you get the vertical jump, because I've got him
I can show you
What-
that.
the buttons.
Honest,
He's
with
not
Nick-
going vertical. He's going up and leaning in like you would jump on a person.
Right.
He's not doing a
And-
jump up. It's a jump
and that's
What you
in.
want to do is kind of like in your yoga where you were holding your tree up. You want to figure out where that distance is where you would hold your tree up and then can keep 4 on the floor. And then go just about an inch higher, maybe an inch and a half. So that you start to
Oh,
pop up just like that far off the ground. And then you slowly raise your hand until you have the height you want.
alternately, like if you like Nick has a jump cue,
Hmm.
and so when I know he's being sticky, when I can tell he's being sticky, like I have my hand just above his nose and he's just looking up at me, then I will give him the cue of I will either say jump or I will give this cue and then immediately give the jump up, the touch my hand cue.
No, that's too
Because
high.
I'm trying to do a cue transfer on that.
Come here, babies.
okay. So it's a touch, but raising the bar on the touch. I
So
never
if
did
he'll
that
touch your
way.
hand, like if he'll touch your hand in front of his face, but he won't touch your hand directly over his face, then what I would do is just start with him touching your hand in front of his face, gradually bring it up so that then he just noses up and then lift it up.
Right.
So it's all about figuring out the splits for each how far to split the behavior for each dog, and each dog needs a different level of splits. And I swear to God, if I didn't know better, I'd swear Nick has a migraine because he's laying with his paw over his eyeballs.
Ashlyn does, so he's just joining her.
Okay, I will
exercising.
work on the jump tomorrow because I know I'm exhausted.
And that's fine. That's
Well,
these
that
were
leads
just
us actually into our next topic of the night because it goes with these games. And so we're going to kind of explain like when you might play one game versus the other. So, Cindy, do you want to start talking about startup routines?
yes. So we have our new acronym for startup routines, and it's simple. The first word, the S is simple. We want to keep the routine. Well, let's first talk about why we do startup routines. Startup routines are about assessing our dog, where our dog is at in the situation, what we're doing, how we're adjusting to it, how they're adjusting to it, and it basically does a little bit of assessment. It also basically turns your dog on. It gives your dog the opportunity to tell you what's going on and if they need more warm up or less warm up. So there's some components of a startup routine that we want to keep it simple. So we want a short, simple routine that's easy to do that we can do just about anywhere. Nick has a specific startup routine that we use when we're doing obedience training. And that's specifically to obedience training. We have another one that we use when we go out and we do public access because we need to basically go from, okay, I'm a dog into, okay, now I'm a working service dog and I have to behave. So, we have a place where we have a warm up to that position so that before we walk into the door of a business, he's turned on and doing what he's supposed to do. We want to keep it targeted. The routine should be targeted in a way to orient the dog to the surroundings and what's going on. So when you're doing a startup routine, one of the things is like if you leave your house, you put your dog in your magic box on wheels, and when you open the box up again, I'm talking about your vehicle. When you open that box up again, you're in a completely new place. You've been transported, you've been in a transporter, and you're on a new planet. And so the dog needs to, like we've driven there, we've seen what's going on, we've heard what's going on, we've been absorbing, we know what's going on, we've been that way. We've traveled like this for years. We understand what's happening. The dogs, especially a young dog, doesn't necessarily understand that, especially if they're like, if they travel in a crate, like Nick generally travels in a crate or below window level, so he doesn't necessarily see what's going on. And then he gets out of the car and it's new smells, new sights, new sounds, and so he needs a minute to reorient. So we want to target skills that will allow them to reorient in a quick way and adjust to their environment. And we'll talk about what these games can be, what we can do. We also want to, that we want the routine to give them the appropriate arousal level for the situation. So like if you're going to go out and you're going to do high energy agility and your dog just came out of the crate, you're sleeping for 5 hours on the way to the agility trial, you're going to need a time to wake up and warm up. If you are going shopping at the mall and your dog was just, running around the backyard, now you're going grocery shopping, you're going to need a way to kind of cool down, warm down, cool down, turn that volume down a little bit so that they're not quite as aroused. So the idea is to match, to get your dog's energy level matched to the appropriate situation that you're in. We want these to be quick, simple wins where they're getting lots of rewards very quickly. And it's basically, I mean, we always want to set our dogs up for success, but this is something that we especially want: quick success, rhythmic. And the rhythmic thing is key. It really changes your dog's attitude. When you start training in loops with very loopy training and very rhythmic training, your whole training changes and your whole dog morphs when you start doing this. So if you think about it, your timing, you want your clicking or your yes, 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 you want it to almost be on a metronome. So like if you're playing a look at that game, looks away, Mark gets a treat, looks away, Marks gets a treat, looks away, Marks gets a treat. You want it that quick, that rhythmic, and you want the dog that engaged. And this really helps bring them in and helps them focus on what you're doing. And this builds the teamwork builds the team, builds the teamwork, and changes the desire to work so that you're thinking more as a team. That rhythmic clicking or marking or however that rhythmic motion of the quick wins helps both of you tune into each other and get everything back in sync. So it's just a way to help focus everybody and bring everybody in. So a really good way to start a warm-up routine. You can do some hand touches. If you're playing out of your own car and you're using a crate, you can go in and out of the crate within the car, and then you can come out and you could maybe play some look at that, or go sniff, or look at that and go sniff. And the idea is what you're doing is you're trying to let the dog take in the environment while at the same time bringing that arousal level to the appropriate, I'm calm, but I'm awake and I'm alert. And I understand there's a goose over there, but the goose is none of my business. I'm telling you there's a goose over here, but I want my cookie. Oh, there's a cow over there. And I'm just making animals up for some reason. But the idea is I've taken that thing in, I'm coming back to my handler. I've taken that thing in, I'm coming back to my handler. I sniffed that smell, I'm coming back to my handler. And
while this is happening, you can
be walking towards
basically, yeah, it's your way of knowing, all right, we just got here, my dog's too amped up, I don't have the focus I need for what we're going to do next, so then we're going to stretch it out and play a longer startup routine game. And if we get out of the car and our dog is calm and, instant focus, ready to go, we might only play a 30-second startup routine, right? So
Right.
your end goal is to have the focus and the energy level that you need to do whatever your next thing is. So one example of a good startup is that Belle's been learning the trick, take a bow. And so with that trick, it's just a silly trick. We're going to use it in public. We're going to use it more for therapy dog stuff than actual work. So it's a fun thing. But so I need her, in order to get her to want to do the behavior for our training sessions, I need her to bow, pop up, chase the treat, bow, pop up, chase the treat. Because if I don't have her arousal level kind of high in that situation, she's going to lay down instead of bow, right? I want her bouncy so that she's only bowing for a few seconds and then jumping up again. And so we play tug beforehand, and I get her amped and I get her tugged, and then I have to like lower her arousal just enough so that she can actually focus on me more than the tug toy, right? Because at first, right after playing tug, all she wants is more tug, and she's not thinking about learning. So I have to amp her up and then bring her back to that zone where she can actually pay attention to what I'm asking and focus on my food or toy, depending on what I'm using to reinforce. So that's a really good example of that startup routine. Your startup routine can be a game that you already play. Simple, easy, some tug. When we do tug, we do a lot of, we're going to tug, tug, tug. We're going to drop. We're going to pause. We might sit. We might do a spin, tug, 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 whatever. And so it's not just nonstop tugging for 3 minutes. There's cues built into it that allow me to assess Belle's focus level at the time and how excited she is and whether she's more focused on the toy or she's listening to my voice and watching my body language as well.
And this is a good time to assess what's going on with your dog, because if you get out of if you go and you've got say you've got 10 errands to do and you get out of the car and your dog won't take a treat, it's a good indication that maybe it's not a good idea to go do whatever you were going to do, go shopping or go do whatever your errand was or your training mission was. The dog's not eating, there's something going on and we can discuss what we can do about not eating if it's not a medical problem.
Yep, that's another Zoom.
But that's a whole nother Zoom. But if you get to someplace and your dog is not performing the way you would expect them to be, it's like if you've ever taken a little kid grocery shopping and you go to the grocery store and all of a sudden the kid melts down, but you're out of groceries. You have to make the choice of, do I wait for somebody to watch my children or pay somebody to go grocery shopping, or do I shop with the screaming kid? Now, you're going to be more tolerated with a screaming kid, although not much, than you will with a melting dog. But it's a good way to make that quick assessment of, is this really a viable solution, or do I need to just load him back up in the car and go home? And that's a perfectly legitimate choice to make, especially in the early stages of training, because we don't want to burn our dogs out. We don't want to push them past what they're capable of doing. But, if there's a reason your dog's not taking treats in the car where they always take treats, or they won't participate in your warm-up routine, the chances are that you're not going to have as good of a trip that day that you might have another day. I had an episode where Ken and I were going out. He came over to pick me up. I got Nick ready and Nick wasn't acting right. And it actually stopped our whole trip right there. We waited and we ended up going several hours later because we had to make sure Nick was okay. And that was it's about being willing to make those calls, because we are talking about another being. We're not talking about a cane that's broken where you can just grab the other cane and go. We're talking about having a living sentient being that we're asking to help us. And so we need to be respectful of that, the other half of our team. And if they're struggling, we need to honor that. And this is a really, really quick, simple, and easy way to do it. And it's really not a bad idea to have something similar to do at home. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to start up and start training you, but it could be a quick assessment of, is this trip viable today? Of how's my dog responding while I'm getting their gear on? And if the answer is not the way they're supposed to be responding, that might be a day where either you stay home or they get stuck in the crate and they stay home and you go do your errands.
The whole
So-
reason like we want to focus on this tonight is because this is super important when you're teaching a new task. You know, that's the idea for our program is let's get some better, more well thought out tasks. Let's help our dogs learn new tasks. So having that startup routine that's gonna benefit the task is gonna make it easier for our dogs to learn. So they're gonna learn faster. If we're asking them to do something that might be slightly fearful, like I have videos of Belle tugging a walker toward me, and she doesn't really love that one because she has run over her feet a couple of times with the wheels that twist. You know, she'll do it, but she's hesitant. So I have to make sure that she is in a very happy, excited, and almost higher arousal mode and really wants to play tug in order to get her to practice that task. So we have to really
And
think about that.
And we're talking about, I was talking about, like doing this in the parking lot for public access. This is also something you should be doing at the start, pretty much at the start of every training session, whether it's
Right.
at home or if it's on the road or it's in a public access training. It's something, if you go for a walk in the park, this is something to do real quickly at the door before you leave, or as you step out the door to see what they need, to see what their needs are and see what needs to happen next so that because it could be, well, okay, Nick's not taking a treat right now. We're not going to do what we're going to go train. We're going to go out. We're going to go potty. We're going to sniff and we're going to come back in. And then maybe we'll try something. So it's an important assessment tool to assess what's going on with your dog. And, we're all about assessing the situation and seeing what's going on. And this will actually speed up a lot of your training, because if your dog's having an off day, there's no point in forcing a training session when your dog is just not able to do it. And we've all had bad brain days, and our dogs are entitled to having bad brain days as well, especially if we're cramming knowledge into their brain. I mean, clearly they understand English. They can't speak it, but they can understand it. And if they can understand it enough to take a cue, but they're having a bad day, I've had Nick forget how to sit in places where he knows how to sit, where he basically was taught how to sit as a puppy. And that was like, no, we are taking a break, and we have been on a break since that day where he forgot how to sit in class. So it's an important assessment skill as a dog handler to have this skill, so you know whether it's worth even continuing, or hey, we're probably going to have a great day because it was like boom boom boom, we did all those things and you're still looking, we're still totally engaged as a team. It also makes things like if you're doing this at the parking lot at the store and your dog, you want your dog to open the door for you, it gets your dog prepped and set up so that they're like, okay, I'm working now. I'm walking up to the door. Oh, mom wants me to push the button. Okay, I'll push the button for her. Not a problem.
And you can
so
stop a few feet away from the button and do the game where he's jumping up to touch your hand so that he's like in that jump
Oh.
mindset before you actually get to the button.
Okay.
So,
So
you
there's a
add that
lot-
in your startup routine for that particular thing. If you know that you want him to do the button, lead him up to it by getting him used to that behavior. Again, like you're going to practice at home first with the jumping, but to do it like just before you're approaching the button can kind of put him in the right mindset so that he's like ready to do it when you ask for the button.
And recently, through one of the training programs I'm going through right now, I have been getting drilled into my head the best way to organize teaching things is easy, hard, easy. So if you start with this, if you have a routine that you start with, maybe you have 3, 4 or 5 games that you can choose through. You can play all of them or 1 or 2 of them, and to warm your dog up, let them know what's going on and assess what's going on. But you got a bunch of easy wins there. Then you go to the new skill that you're working on, which is harder because it's a new skill. And then you can go back to the easy games, or if at any time during your training session, your dog is starting to struggle a bit, back up, go back to the easier games, do a couple, look at that, or treat tosses, or go sniffs, so that they understand, hey, this is real easy win. And, like treat toss, look at that, and go sniff are all super, super win-win games, because, oh, it's like I get to sniff. Oh, cool. I got to sniff. And now I get a treat, and I get to sniff again, and I get a treat. So that's total win-win for the dog. And then they kind of get to that, do I sniff or do I get a treat? Do I sniff or get a treat? So that's a win-win for the dog. So that's easy, easy, easy. And then you can throw in something a little bit harder. You don't want to make it so hard that you scare them, or they get frustrated, but you want to make it, might make something that they have to think about a little bit more, and then go back to something super, super easy. And it
That way
makes
you're
training
always
better.
starting and ending on a great note that your dog loves. And you do the hard in the middle.
And then I have a tendency, so because of Nick's need to hunt, I have a very specific routine how we end our training session, and we end with a bunch of flirt pole stuff, and then I throw the last thing I do in that whole sequence, we do some positions, and we play flirt pole, we do some positions, we play flirt pole, and then we play a little, then we do a couple more positions, we do a little more flirt pole, and in the middle of that I pull the flirt pole and I throw a prey dummy, which is basically this little zippered tube filled with cookies in it, or in Nick's case it's usually breakfast. And he gets that, and he gets to dig through that, and he gets all aspects of his prey drive met on some level. And it's a very good predictor of him, to him, that, hey, training is over, I get to go do my own thing, I get to eat this thing, and when I'm done, it's my time. So it's a very clear, it's kind of an expensive off switch behavior, or an all done behavior, but in our case, it's necessary. You can do things that are not quite dramatic, but
Out.
it's also
It also works that to be like a delayed reinforcement off switch. So like I may not do it right at the end of our training session. I'm more likely to save that exciting thing for the end of a work session. So like when we get home from whatever we just did, then we're gonna play the more amped up thing as a reinforcer, but it's also going to signify the end of, all right, we're off duty, let's have some fun kind of thing. So, I mean, you can kind of put it right where you need it the most, depending on, what your dog likes and needs, which could be
and
at the end of a training session, or could be, at the end of an actual work session or wherever. So it is kind of important to have a wind down routine too, that tells your dog we're done with this and we're moving on to the next thing. And the next thing might just be taking a break. You go do your thing while I go do my thing.
it might be timeout on a cot. If you're in a class, it could be a timeout on a bed or a cot, or something of that nature, where it's like you're gonna chill here. And then what I have it when I release and we're done, if we don't go through our whole prey drive thing, I will throw a handful of treats and say all done. But it's a signal of, we're done with it, we're done with this activity, and here's your reward for being a good boy, and ending it on a positive note. Some people will give a single treat, some people don't do a whole lot, but it's important, it's just as important to have an ending routine as it is to have a starting routine. Otherwise you kind of leave your dog hanging, like, what's going on? Are we done, or am I still working? Where do I fit in all of this? So it's important
What
to
do you
have,
want me to do now?
yeah, what am I supposed to do? Do I get to go be a dog, or am I supposed to stay on my mat? And that's what I think
Am I supposed to go in my box?
I've come to the conclusion that when I need to release my dog from a bed or a crate or a box, that I need to make sure that they physically remove themselves from that space. They can go right back on it, I don't care, but I want that clear signal that my dog understands that you are not being forced, you are not being required to stay there for any reason. You are free to move about the cabin at your own rate of speed. And it's about communicating with our dogs. And I think that as, what are we this week? Are we positive reinforcement? Are we concepts based? Are we
I
rewards
always
based?
say games based and ethical.
Ethical? I like ethical.
Like positive is nice, but, and I mean, we do use positive reinforcement in all of our training, but it's impossible to be 100% positive your whole life. Because
Well, it's
even
called life
sometimes that leash is negative, or maybe sometimes going to the vet might be negative, or maybe
Well,
getting
let's
a,
just say
I mean, we add
that's why I like
negative, whether we like it or
that's
not.
why I like rewards based and games based and concepts based.
Right.
The idea is we want basing our communication with our dogs, that we are working with our dogs through communicating with them, not through force. That our dogs are communicate, if we pay attention to it, our dogs, they communicate back to us just as much as we communicate to them. Like Nick's whole fiasco with the crate this afternoon, when he was clearly telling me I need attention, and I was not in a position to give him attention. And I said, well, what do you need to go to your crate? And he went to his crate, and it wasn't really, it was just a conversational tone, pretty much like that. And he went to his crate. So he got pulled out of his crate and was given a chew to chew on. So it's important because I knew he needed something to do, and I was not able to give him what he needed. So it's important to be able to
You
get
gave him a
that,
substitute.
give him a substitute, but it's also important to be able to recognize that your dog is communicating with you. And that, and I think that that's something with the type of training that we do, I think we're more apt to pay attention
You
to
wanna
those
play?
things that our dogs tell us than
Okay.
if we were making demands on their behavior at all times.
Okay.
Hi, Pippin.
Right, so now that Robin's back, let's kind of transition into our brainstorming session. And like one thing that I know everybody that's here, with the exception of maybe myself, one of the tasks that you guys all want is a dog that pushes buttons to open doors. So I'm gonna create in the chat group a list of tasks that we want to train. And so the goal is tasks, right now, let's just focus on tasks that use a push. So, you know, like nose to push something or paw to push something.
So I'm going to start with with closing doors and drawers and
Mhm.
pushing buttons. Pushing can also be used for alerts.
Yeah, that's.
I know people that like it's basically a chin target, but they call it pressure because they want the chin and a little bit of force down just to keep the handler in the here and now.
Like a grounding task.
Right, but it's instead of full on DPT, it's just a chin to like, yes, we're connected, yes, I'm watching you, and you're about to have a problem kind of thing.
That's an alert.
Yep.
What do
So
you call it if they're allowed to use their paw or their mouth to knock something off the counter to then bring it to you? But they know they can't go get that thing off the counter themselves. But if you tell them, they can go swipe it to go get it. Is
yeah,
that
I don't know that there's a specific name for that, but I know exactly
I
what you
would
mean.
call that a
because,
directed. I would call that a directed or named item retrieve.
right.
okay?
Well, they
Pippin
are
says-
pushing it too, so I mean, that's one thing about the foundation tasks that we're going to go,
Ashland
why
said
we're
you're in
going over
private.
the foundation tasks so extremely is because we want to make sure that like multiple tasks require more than one foundation. So while we're starting with the push theme, because that's the one we did tonight, there are lots of tasks that may involve a small element of push, but the majority of it is something else, some other foundation.
Yeah, there's things that we do sloppy that are tasks that involve push. But it's like that targeted retreat thing. He's used pushes to do things, but they're sloppy. But they work, but they're a sloppy work.
Well, Nick has sloppy tasks because like Nick's clothing removal task, it's not super polished, but I mostly need like I can dress and undress myself, but having that little extra oomph of, I need Nick to help me with this, that little extra Nick element to it just makes it that much easier. So I don't have like Nick grab my pants at my waist and pull them down for me. I have a certain level of, okay, I've got my pants to this point, just pull them off my feet.
So
If that
with
makes sense.
push being the task that we were just focusing on, do we want to switch and look at pull, the opposite?
Pull is next week.
Right, but I
But-
mean, do we want to list
but
the
push-
tasks that we want to do for pull? That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Is-
Let me look at what you've got on your task list. You've got buttons, doors, drawers.
Are there lights or I've been trying to figure out if there's some type of light thingy that I could make into a push thing that he could turn on.
They
There are,
do have little like round.
I have
almost
a round thing.
they
I have a
have
couple
a
of
little
those and I
light that you just push it and it clicks on. I actually have one right in the other room. I can get it.
there's the push buttons, the push button lights, like that are like the easy button, but they're a light.
Earl
Um,
uses push button lights for me. He'll go get the button, push it so that way I don't have to look for a flashlight.
Hang on, Robin. I think I know what you're talking about, but there's also plugs that they can turn on.
Okay.
I don't have batteries in it at the moment, but so I mean, basically, it's just a little round light. And so the
Okay.
dog can step on it if it's on the floor. There's sticky on the back if you want to pull the sticker off. So like you can put it on a wall if you want it in a specific place. And then they just push it kind of like a handicap button. It's just I
Oh.
don't know if you can hear it clicking. And I actually got these at like the dollar store, but they're hard to find at the dollar store now. You can get a 2-pack for like $4 at a hardware store usually.
Okay.
I actually got something like that. That's actually a night light. That's a light switch to use for teaching how to flick a regular light switch. Now, this is
Yep, I've
not
seen
one.
those too. I just don't have one of those.
This is not one, but there are buttons that are about this size and shape that you can push. Their pressure button that you can use to turn on and off a light. And I was going to use, so it's like, or to turn on and off something. I was going to use them, and then I got an Alexa, and decided not to go that route. Decided to use my voice instead.
Did you guys see Earl pushing the light button?
I did not.
You want to go ahead and share your screen? And while she's doing that,
I
so
don't know
this
how
is
to
one of the
share my
talking buttons. If
screen.
I put batteries in it, this one I
Penny,
think
can
just
you
says
hi-
I love you.
Penny, can you highlight her?
Yes,
Or
but
spotlight
her
her.
camera's not on yet.
Okay, you need to turn your
Okay.
camera. Okay.
All right, Earl, push.
Can you spotlight her?
Working on it.
Oop, her camera went off.
Right, and it won't let me spotlight her if her camera's off.
Yeah, because
Oh.
there you go, push. Good boy. Did you see?
Yeah,
It happens really. He's likes this
good
one.
at it.
Yeah, he does that one a lot. That's a big one, and it can hang on the wall. So you could take it with you, but there's also this little one. And he'll do that one too. And this one he can carry with him and bring to me. This one's
And here-
much harder to push.
And
So-
Nick will not have anything to do with those because he is terrified of the voice recorded
Oh
ones, and I
boy,
made
thank you.
the mistake of having him try and push the button for a click and read for a nice, did not work well. So teach it without
There's
the battery.
also those, don't know if I know how to zoom in. I don't know how to zoom in. Uh, those light switches next to that round wooden sign.
So
Those
are
are,
those the rock switches?
yeah, those are great to have if you need a dog to turn on lights for you. That can
And
turn
that's-
on the light and the fan.
And that's something you can request as an ADA accommodation because they're actually supposed to be putting those in all new construction, at least in California.
Yeah, I've actually just had that one moved up recently because I got these other ones but he likes to turn on and off the lights.
Yeah,
But
Nick,
for pushing, it's real handy for them to like Earl pushes the heater on for me. So
Yeah, that's a
when it's
good
getting
one.
too cold, he can, you know, he just does a chin rest push, and he'll turn on the heater for me.
And if he gets too cold, he can do it himself.
Yeah, which he does a lot. He'll look at me and he'll bring me a blanket,
Yeah.
and
We're
then
not
he'll
going outside
and
right
then
now.
he'll just go and turn on the heater himself.
Daddy's got treats.
so he has not signed the roommate agreement to keep the temperature of the apartment at a certain degrees and wear a hoodie all the time.
No, but it is, on his behalf, it is pretty chilly.
Well, Nick is also Nick got
It's for
shaved.
Christmas.
But,
So this one I think says I love you.
Mhm.
Come here, Bubba.
Can you push it?
So they can also push an item across the room, like if something's too big for them to carry for some reason, you can teach them to push or drag it. Like if you have them, I don't know if a ball comes to mind, like tribal, but if you have something or a walker, they could either learn to push it or pull it, depending on what you're having them do. So there's all kinds of different tasks.
I was thinking push a laundry basket possibly, because I'm not supposed to be leaning over because of Dizzy.
That usually works better with pulling with a tug toy on it.
And
Like,
we can
a tug
demonstrate
toy
that
on it.
next.
It's easier for the
Yeah.
dog.
Okay.
And Nick has a couple videos to demonstrate that. He's done that. We've got my laundry basket set up for that very reason. So there's a lot of foundational. Hi, Earl. He's staring at the phone like he knows I'm in here.
Yeah, he's bringing me his shoes. He wants to go for a walk.
So the other thing you can do, so there's a lot, you can move the dog around and you can teach them different positions and get them places using the hand target. There's a lot of uses besides the foundations of the tasks, but there's definitely a lot of tasks that I know we haven't listed
Oh
all
yeah,
of
we're
them.
just looking at the ones that we want our dogs to do. And then I do want like a list of other tasks that like what task, no matter what foundations it takes, what tasks is most important to you that you want to learn about ASAP. Oh, thanks, Ashlyn.
Julie wants to be spotlighted.
Does she? So push alerts, what do you mean by push alerts, or are you just adding that to the list?
I'm adding that to the push list because like if they're doing any
Like
kind
the
of
nose nudging, that's my migraine alert actually, is the pushing
any
their
kind
nose
of
into
alert,
the leg or
any kind of
shoulder.
alert, any kind of alert that you want them to do a if
Right,
they
the
need
nose
a
target.
nudge. The
Is
other thing we should
Is
cover
a
it. Some,
lean in a push, or is that
Pardon me?
different?
Say that again, Robin.
Is a lean in a push, or is that different?
It is a target. It's not, it could be considered a push. You know, it depends on, like, we really didn't define what push is. And they're not pushing with their nose or their paws like we were originally talking about, but they're like pushing with their shoulder and body. So yeah, I mean, that's a push.
But it's not foundational because they're having to go from this to a whole different body part.
Well,
They're
there are still
generalizing it.
foundations involved in it. And you would teach it basically the same way as a foundation of, you know, just like you teach paw targets, you would teach, you know, lean this body part into, usually I start with my hand, but eventually I'm merging it over to my leg because that's what they're going to be leaning into most of the time, or your chest if they're jumping up on you and leaning into your chest so you don't fall over.
Okay.
it just
For
depends
things I
on.
would really like to learn how to teach for tasks would be holding a door open for me, like at the grocery store. I have a really hard time with those freezer doors. You know,
Okay.
when I have to, because I have to pull my chair up close, but then back up to open the door and then pull up again, and then the door shuts before I get a chance to pull up close enough to get the item I need.
Okay, so Julie, with our next outing, bring your, I think you have a big carabiner and a tug toy.
I
That's a good
And
one to
we're,
get video of. And I mean, you can practice at home if your refrigerator actually has a handle like that. Mine does, but I'm not teaching my dogs to open the refrigerator. Not at home anyways.
No,
It'd be one
Yeah.
thing out in the
but
store.
so like Nick has a close the door task, and it's
Mhm.
basically the same type of thing where I have him back away from, back to close the door up where
Right.
he's pulling
Tugging the
it
door
up.
to move the door toward them. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter whether they're closing that door or tugging it open. It's the same skill.
it's the same skill. It's just you have to transfer it to that particular. That's why I said bring your tug toy and a seat and a carabiner, and we will. And I'll bring one, and we can. I would rather do it.
okay. He was
Maybe,
he's more likely to open, like pull the door open,
But
but
then he needs the
especially with,
duration to hold it.
yeah, like he wants to get out of the way right away, especially because I having to move my chair up closer to get to the item. He thinks I'm going to roll into him, or maybe it's
okay.
cold.
Well,
I don't know, but he wants to get out of the way right away.
can we meet at PetSmart this week? That doesn't sound good.
No, not at all.
Can we,
I think she's gonna be busy a minute, so save that question for a little bit later.
I'll just send her a text.
Yeah. So are there any other tasks that you guys want on here for like what we're going through first? Ashlyn's gonna get a video of the door too. But yeah, so anything else you want us to add to the list for now? And this is gonna be an evolving list.
For the
Our
push.
idea with this group is that, you know, we'll meet each week for the first couple of weeks, we'll go over a foundation behavior. We'll play a couple of games or at least demonstrate a couple of games. It might be video based if all the dogs are sleeping kind of thing, but we'll demonstrate a couple of games that can help you build that foundation on Tuesday nights. And then on Friday afternoons, it's 2 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Central. We will meet and we will actually demonstrate using those foundational skills that we learned before in teaching a new task, right? So then we'll get more tasks into it on Friday, and we want those tasks to be things that you want to teach. So you're welcome to continue to add to this group. If you weren't here for the live meeting and you have tasks you want to add, you can send them to either Cindy or myself, or put them in the task chat group that we have either on the Working Paws Facebook group or the Patreon membership. There's a chat group there as well. So let us know what tasks you want added to the list. We're going to try to focus this Friday specifically on pushing. And next week we'll be looking at pulling a little bit more. And then from there we can like branch out to whatever it is most important to you guys. Or if you want to work more on pushing or pulling and making those tasks a little bit more advanced, we can do that as well. You know, because
let us know.
sometimes, especially a task like retrieve, has so many layers. There's the initial just teaching the dog to pick up something and bring it to us and put it in our hand nicely. But then there's the application of it, and what are we having them retrieve? You know, are we having them retrieve our meds? Where can they find them? What do they have to do to get them? Are we having them retrieve a water bottle? Where do they find it? How do they get it? How long do they have to carry it? You know, all that stuff. And so there's a lot of different things that you can build up into the task. So like opening a door and opening a drawer and holding that door open are all very similar procedures. Like they rely on the same foundations. However, you have to tweak it slightly. So you might start with the early foundation of, can we just pull the door open? And then when you get there and you're getting the door pulled open, it's like, okay, now I need him to actually hold it for a duration. Okay, now I need him to be able to close the door too. And so tasks kind of evolve that way, as maybe we start with a simpler task that helps us. But the more we use it and the more we use it, we realize, oh, if he could just do it this way. And so as we go through this program, we want to spend about 6 months doing it. But so we'll do a lot of variety and a lot of different things. But we want it to be that work group feel of, you need to communicate to us what you want us to go over. We want to support you so that at the end of the 6 months, you have 1 to 3 tasks that are the way you want them now. So does anybody have any questions?
I'm just going to make the comment. I made it earlier in another Zoom, but often you will see somebody do something like this in this group. And if you see that happen, it means the dog just brought you something. So in this case, it's a flashlight. And I think he's getting ready. He's telling me he wants to go outside, even though it's not quite, it's like the pre-4 o'clock mealtime deal. We're having the pre-8 o'clock potty time thing. So anyways, if you see somebody just hold something up like this randomly, it means their dog just brought them something.
I did
And
that
that's
with the Wells Penguin earlier too. Oh
You did
yeah,
it-
she just said she loves me.
You did it with the possum this afternoon.
Yeah,
But if you see us do that, that's generally what that means, is the dog brought us something.
and we'll
and we're
just hold it up for a minute. You
Yeah,
know,
it
and
doesn't have to
show.
be very long.
And usually we won't say anything about it unless, you
Yeah,
know.
it's usually, but I just thought I would explain that in case you ever see that this just means the dog brought me something. And anybody can do it
Anytime. Yep.
anytime. The thing is, I personally like to have retrieve on an auto retrieve, or I guess a default retrieve is a better way to describe it.
Yeah,
where
default, because auto suggests they're gonna do it without a cue. And I don't
Right,
want my
so-
dog to do it without a cue.
The thing about retrieving is, I want my dog, if they find a new treasure, I want that treasure brought to me. I don't want it chewed up or ingested, because it might be something that they shouldn't chew up, or I don't want them to chew up. So I would much rather receive this 50 million times without tooth marks and give 50 million cookies because the remote came to me automatically, then I would have, I still want it on cue. I still want it on cue enough that I can direct Nick to pick it up. But I want him to feel comfortable enough that, like, hey, I'm still interested in retrieving. Do I still get a cookie? And with retrieve, in my opinion, it's a safety feature, because if they go, oh, I got something new in my mouth, I want to show mom, then I want to go show mom and see if I get a cookie. I would much rather have that issue than have the issue of, I see Penny just got retrieved something. What is that? Looks
And
like
I
a
just
piece of
got
fluff.
another love you.
But I would much rather have
fun
these
with
things
that button.
brought, these random objects brought to me than have them chewed up. It's safer for the dog, it's safer for me, and um, there's one person on Facebook that routinely would post her dog's shopping trips and you know what the dog brought in from the other room. Plastic bag, poop bag.
No, it's a
So
Walmart bag or a store
So-
bag. I don't know what store, but
so if your dog retrieves something, you can always do the bring and brag and say, look what my dog brought me, which is basically what that is. But it's also, you know, I want a solid retrieve, but I want that also to be something that is a default behavior, because there's, you know, if your dog wants to chew on a rock, I would much rather have my dog bring me a rock than chew on a rock. So it's just a safety feature, in my opinion.
we'll talk a lot more on retrieves a lot of time. We just wanted to
Yeah.
be able to, you know, explain why something magically appears.
And it's usually something really random, like a dumbbell. And I'm not talking about a retrieving dumbbell. I'm talking about, this was literally brought to me this afternoon. So
Yeah,
it's
I get all kinds of things just before Belle goes to bed at night and very first thing in the morning when she wants some extra treasures. Anyways,
that's
we'll wrap this up for tonight unless anybody has additional tasks they want to add that we discuss sooner rather than later. We're going to put this list together as a Google Doc so it can grow and expand as we work through this process, through this 6-month period of working with this. And the reason we chose 6 months is because we want people to realize that just because we teach foundation week 1, maybe you're working on easy stuff for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we need to circle back and do something with hand targets again to expand what we were doing and to make it harder. So we wanted a longer duration so people had time to really go from something they've never taught before to a task they love that mitigates their disability. And we don't care whether those tasks are solely at home or solely in public or a mix of both, or, you know, for us, a task is a task. Anything the dog can do for you that helps your disability.
And the other thing is, we want you to keep thinking, expanding, what would it be helpful for my dog to do? And let us know what those tasks are. It might be, you know, I realized in 4 months from now, I realized that I can use push in this totally different way. Just because we may have finished the push section,
Yes, we can definitely revisit it to expand it, make it harder, or, you know, as a bragging moment for you, maybe so we like to end these with a brag moment, right? So whatever your dog has been doing, and whether that's something we talked about that week or something that you've been working on for the past 3 months, we don't care. You can have your brag moment. So I just want to add that, like, Julie added one that is for teaching the dog to wipe their own paws before coming inside, which would be a foot target. Kind of the same thing, along with they're pushing their feet on the mat. Similar to, like, another good one to go with that would be the nail grinding things, where, you know, it's paw targets, but they're kind of pushing into it a little bit. So, and that would be really helpful to a lot of people if their dogs would groom their own nails so we don't have to.
And Nick does the scratch pads. Julie, the other thing is with the wipe your paws, a lot of times I see people teach it by teaching them to spin on
A mat.
like a mat of some sort that will clean their paws, because
Yeah.
it's want to get all 4 paws, and it's much harder to teach wiping your back paws. I mean, you can, it's probably, but if he likes to spin, I can show you what kind of mat to get that is going to absorb all that poodle.
They have really nice ones that are designed for pet owners that, you know, they're supposed to pull the wet off any shoes, dog feet, anything.
Oh.
They're
And
kind
you-
of like thicker and almost like so similar to a snuffle mat, how they have the little bumps and ridges where they
Okay.
stick up, and they're specifically targeted to pet owners.
Okay.
So does anybody have a brag moment that they want to do tonight? And at this point in time, we can stop the recording if it's something you don't want to share on Patreon.
And
So
Julie,
anytime you want us to stop the recording, just tell us.
Well, when
Julie,
the
this
friend came
out.
over, Pippin was way too happy because he's not seen people. And this was a gal that helped me go pick him up. So, and she's not a dog person at all, but she knows enough to know I'm training constantly. And
Uh-huh.
she goes, I'm going to sit down, aren't I? And I nod. And she goes, you want to make him sit and he has to be quiet, then he can say hi? And I'm like, uh-huh. And he figured it out. And we don't call it dog, I call it puppy sit up, puppy push-ups.
Uh-huh.
And when he could
Sit
finally
down,
do up
sit
and downs and lefts and rights, he could say hello. And we went to the restaurant and he walked in fine. And then the lady with the walker goes, can I say hi? In that type of voice. And my friend just went like this.
Right?
She knows what that voice does. She didn't leave it to me to speak. I was amazed. She just went, that's a service dog. The lady went, what? She lowered her voice from the baby voice.
Mm-hmm.
She just went, that's a pretty dog. The way you would talk to a guy. Pippin, instead of getting excited, puffed himself up and just sat down like I had just said, good dog. And it was just like, I couldn't believe it.
Nice.
He knew the tone of voice between my friend and then that lady. The tone of voice in public did it. It was so cool. It was the good boy voice. And I'd never seen it coming from other people, and it modulated his behavior. I thought it was cool.
Yep. Especially when it comes from somebody that like they kind of know, don't know, you know, it's a praise, but if it's said in the right way, like as most of you probably know already, a praise that's high, you know, in that high kind of child baby squeaky voice, it's gonna excite the dog. But if you can praise with just a calm, good boy, then it reminds them of, oh yeah, there's something I'm supposed to do right here.
And it just was like, I was like, phew. But then I was like, my friend knew what to do. The customer modeled what the friend did, and the dog figured it all out and did what he was supposed to do in public. It didn't
Awesome.
go the way the gal in the walker wanted it to go.
Right.
good.
Cool. And it doesn't usually go that way in public when it starts.
Right. Totally get that one. So, there's in the comments, one from Julie. So she dropped a little plastic pot and Earl didn't see her do it. So she asked him to go get it and it was about 20 feet away. She gave him the cue to use your sniffer. And when he got close to it and clapped, and then he brought it to her. So he's never seen this pot before, but he realized it was a thing in the odd place, you know? And I mean, that's kind of where the use your sniffer cue comes in, is that you have to hunt for it. What doesn't make sense in this situation? So Ashlyn is going to show us a video for her. Just a minute, Ashlyn, I'm working on it.
Okay, Julie, this is called a chenille bath rug.
Oh, sorry. I'm already spotlighted, Ashlyn.
Okay. Oh, I like the pretzels.
Yep.
Ooh.
Nick would want to
Yeah.
eat those. Can I have those?
Nope, she delivered them to Ashlyn.
Very cool.
And
Very, very
Ashlyn, if you want to type the story there, but I mean, that is, I remember not too many years ago, one of the very first things that Ashlyn and I talked about was how to get Lily to carry an ice cream sandwich from the kitchen back to Ashlyn. Or, how to get Lily to go to mom and ask for the ice cream sandwich in the first place.
Oh,
Back to mom without eating it. And I mean,
without eating it.
right, right. And I mean, that's the basically the same task that I do with Belle and my husband and my water bottle, only she's not going to eat the water bottle. It'd be a lot harder for her to do it with something she really wanted to eat, like pretzels or an ice cream sandwich or a popsicle or something to that effect. But so it's like that carry and deliver. So when we get a package, if it's small enough, Azul picks it up off the porch and carries it into my husband. That carry and deliver is a really nice task that's built on the retrieve. And yeah, so for Ashlyn, that is just a picture of retrieve. That's something that she retrieved recently.
That is way too cool.
All right, so just a minute, Cindy.
Okay, so this is the
Just a
what
minute, let
Penny
me spotlight you so everyone can see it good.
Okay.
All right, go.
so this is what Penny was talking about. This one is actually kind of
Oh.
cool. I bought this for Poe a long time ago. I don't know if you
Hold
can
it
see
still right there. Hold still. Just hold still. You can kind of see it along the bottom and on the corners, how it's got the bumps.
Okay.
When you move it, it kind of waves and does this weird thing and kind of blurs
I
it.
was so but this actually has paw print. This particular one actually has paw prints on it. But it's called a chenille bath rug,
Yep.
and it's the same. It's basically the same concept of those microfiber mops, and it mops up. I mean, it works really well. I don't use it for that. I use it for other things. But I have several of them around for various purposes. But they're also nice to stand on. But that's what you're looking for Earl, and
Yep.
then he can just spin around on that.
That would be good for wet and muddy and winter weather to
Mm-hmm.
wipe feet on with apartments.
Well, I got it initially. It was for Poe to ride on in Ubers and Lyfts.
She outgrew
Because
that in a hurry, didn't she?
well, no, it still works for her. She can still curl up on it. She curls up pretty small. She fits in Nick's crates. She's actually been in his little box that he was in this afternoon. So,
Cindy, do you have you told the crate story earlier about Nick tonight. Do you have
that's
something
my
else to
brag.
celebrate
That's
tonight
my
or brag a little bit?
Well, I guess the brag thing is I was just really proud of Nick today when I took him out to go work outside, and I had him on a 10-foot leash, and I had it clipped to his collar, and I'm holding one end of the leash, literally the handle of the leash, and he's clipped to the other end of the leash, and he's just walking next to me with the leash dragging behind us, no tension, not picking it up or carrying. And he's just staying with me. And I was thinking about that. It's like his desire to stay with me, and it's not that Poe doesn't have it. Poe just hasn't had the reinforcement history to stay with me the way Nick has.
I
But,
know exactly what you mean because I have that with Belle and Azul. Belle's
and
desire
it's
to be with me is stronger, to be closer. Like Azul's fine as long as he can see me. He doesn't care if he's 50 feet away as long as he can see me.
well, yeah, Nick was sleeping on my chest last night. But
Yeah.
I think what I want to say about that is you see all these bragging things of these dogs in I don't know if you get them in your feed or not, but basically in these heel positions, these fancy heel positions that are taught for IPO
Competitions.
for bite sports. No, they're specifically for bite sports. So we know how they're taught because there's very, very few reinforcement-based
Positive.
training that teach bite sports. We know that there's a lot of coercion and force involved in these. And I'm thinking to myself, what is more impressive to me? A dog dragging a 10-foot leash with the handler just kind of going, talking to the dog, not forcing anything, not demanding, clearly not cueing the dog, and the dog staying right with the handler. Or the
Because they
dog
want to.
because they want to, or this dog in this highly stylized heel position, where they're clearly being cued or commanded, in their case, most likely, to be in that position. What do I want from my dog? I want the dog that, okay, we're done with the training session. I've ended the training session, and right with me. You don't really need, the only reason you're wearing a leash is because you have to, not because you need one.
Right.
That's
And
what
I mean, that's our
want.
goal with all of our service dog tasks as well. We want to be able to build them up in a way that the dog loves to do it. Whether we give them a cookie for it or not. Granted, I give my dog's cookies frequently for tasks. However, even if I don't have that cookie, they still will do the task just because they love to do it. And that's our goal. So that's
And
a great dad.
that was just a really nice feeling today when I was walking him in. I'm carrying my camera, getting my keys out. I'm like, I wasn't unhappy with the training session.
It
Wasn't our
almost makes
best.
you look around and say, do I still have a dog?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. It's like walking through. It's like walking through Kaiser with your dog on your hands-free leash, and you're not holding onto the harness, and your dog is staying right with you. Or you walk across the pharmacy and that happens, and somebody's screaming, "I love your service dog," and you're like, "Shut up! I'm just walking across the
I
pharmacy."
remember the first time I consciously realized that, like, I haven't looked at Azul for a while. Is he still there? And I mean, yes, he was on a hands-free leash. I
Well,
don't work my
and
dogs off leash. And
it's
he was on
even
a short, like 2-foot traffic lead, but generally I feel, a little bit of a stretch on the leash here and there, or, he might go a little bit slower or slightly faster. But, he's always close. That's all I want is that loose heel stay within this area. And it went for like 5 to 6 minutes of I didn't feel anything and like totally forgot I had a dog with me even kind of thing. And then I went, oh wait, I have Azul. Is he still here? And I looked down and there he was smiling at me like, yeah, of course I'm still here. Where else would I be? So yeah, I
and
remember that moment well.
it's just one of those things that it's a little moment. There wasn't anything special going on.
But
It's like,
sometimes that's what we need to celebrate. Those little things that just make us go, yes.
and it was totally, I mean, he knew he was free. He and
Right.
so
It
like
was all my choice. It's where he wanted to be.
99.9% of the time when I take Nick out to go potty, I take him on a hands-free leash or on a retractable because I want him to be able to have the freedom to move around. And more times than not, the leash never gets locked. And he's right next to me. So I'm so sick and tired of the BS that says if your dog's on a back attach harness, or your dog is on a flexi, or this is going to cause your dog to pull. No, it is not. But it's just so nice to just go, oh yeah, no, my dog
Harnesses
doesn't pull.
cause pulling.
Yes. Yes.
No, they don't. People teach our dogs to pull. Anyways, that's another story too, and another long thing. We need to wrap this up because it's been going for a
And
while. Let our
Robin
people
is falling asleep.
I'm
So
trying
falling
not to,
asleep.
but I'm struggling.
I
I'm
will
falling
text
asleep. It's been a
I will
long day
text
for
you
me.
tomorrow with my phone number and let you know, and I'll give you my email, and you can send me your email, and then we can get set up for if you
Okay.
so you thank you.
Nice,
I
nice.
appreciate it.
All right, I'm gonna
All right.
stop the recording.
All right. Bye-bye.